but ended up missing the mark. So I think maybe giving him something that he can have a little bit more of an earlier impact, as he said, Munch, and kind of get the game going could be great. Or even going for something like the Jinx, where he can still have these high impact moments, but he doesn't have to be quite as in close and personal as he needs to with the Aphelios.
We'll have to see. Pick a ban coming on through as RA over on the blue side this time. Rumble, Nocturne, Lulu banned by them, and OMG banning the Renekton, banning the Thresh, banning the Varus. So relatively standard bans from what we've seen in the LPL so far. And RA have to go for that first pick. It was Thresh first pick last time, Dagdo. What are you expecting this time around?
I mean, there's a couple things here. You could go back towards the Ezreal, which we saw pretty high priority on yesterday, and just giving you a lot of control in that bottom lane. But in the last game, Ora went straight towards the set pick. Cube has been super happy with it, and although the Wukong did relatively well when it scaled into the matchup, that early game was dominated by Ora and gave them a very clear lane to play around.
So it will be the set, which I'm amazed at how priority set has become, at least for RA, because they're going to lock that one in for, you'd assume, Cube once again, just going for that blind. The Lee Sin was a huge priority over at MSI. Still a very, very strong pick, especially in the solo lanes, and it is going to be locked in. Whether or not that's for new, whether it could be for Aki, it could be for Creep, we'll have to wait and see. But the Senna comes through as well for Abel.
So this is something I wasn't actually expecting to see. I thought we'd see the Kai'Sa coming out here, but to me, this just says, right, we're not going to be playing around this bottom side of the map. We're going to be looking to try and play towards New and play towards Krem, which is a very different style to what we've already kind of, well, one, seen from OMG and two, expected from OMG. But we'll have to kind of keep our eyes out to see how that one's going to progress. As we look across at ORA, iBoy, however, in the Samira, I think he'll probably go back towards something like the Tristana here. Relatively safe laner that can just scale up with this Senna. And then you have Leanne as well going back towards his tried and tested, that Nidalee, which gives Fofo the opportunity to go towards these AD mid laners.
Oh, but we get the Ezreal. Now, iBoy is an old school player. Ezreal, old school, LPL. These are three things that go together very, very nicely. This is his second most played AD carry. He's more than comfortable on the Ezreal. I'm excited to see what iBoy's going to be able to bring out. The Tahm Kench comes through. Tahm Kench center bot lane. Not much to talk about there. We've all seen it 1,000 times.
Yeah, I'm curious now if OMG are going to ban away again the Zoe here. I think especially when you look at ORA, the range in that composition is pretty obnoxious. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them, as you can already look, get rid of things that can poke relatively well, right? So the Karma off the board, I imagine Zoe's to follow. And then you can actually have some sort of attempt at trying to fight these big team fights. Whereas when we look across at ORA, still a lot that's open here. You've got the flexibility from the Lee Sin, so you can go towards these mid lane picks again if you want to and try and make Krem that little bit uncomfortable. Or you can just call it Aki and say, hey, look, chances are this Lee Sin isn't going towards the jungle. Let's ban some of these jungle champions.
Yeah, the LeBlanc taken away from Krem here, as you mentioned. It's something that we've seen yesterday. Obviously, we don't know the meta perfectly just yet. We need to wait and see more teams play to see what are going to be the most popular mid laners, but that's a few bans now for LeBlanc and a couple of picks. So Lucian taken off the board here by OMG away from, you'd assume, Fofo in this one. And now RA have to decide what they want to remove. Wouldn't be surprised to see another ban away from Krem, maybe take something like the Orianna off the board.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. I think that's probably your best bet to go towards. There it is. And it feels like now, at least for ORA, we can either go back towards the Zoe again that we already talked about if you want to. Or you can try and just opt in towards more of this stronger AD carry, or sorry, stronger mid laner, or an AD build because you've got that Nidalee in the jungle. I'm just curious though what they decide to go towards, because we did see nerfs towards Senna's range, so although she does get a decent amount of range coming into her kit, not going to be able to answer for the super long range composition if that's what ORA decide to go towards.
Udyr taken here. Lien, he liked it in game number 1. He's hovering it in game number 2. He's already got the Nidalee though, but it could go to Fofo. Gwen as well. It's Viego locked in. That could well be Viego mid lane for Fofo here. I said that I wanted to see something more aggressive. That definitely ticks that box.
And this is wonderful because already you can see are hovering these more like range or roam oriented supports. I'd love to see them. Like when you've got Ezreal in the bot lane, you're free to go as you please as Hung. So if you've now got this Viego in the mid, you can look to play heavily towards this mid lane alongside Lien. You even have the stun coming through from the Viego to set up Lien in that lane. Like this feels like a pretty let's just go in on Krem as quickly as we can and see if we can get Fofo rolling here. Now, Krem, you are looking towards those assassins, Munch, and Akali is actually one of Krem's most played assassins, so could definitely see that here, and I think it's a great answer. When you're already looking at someone who wants to try and very much auto-attack focused in Viego, the Shroud is going to do a lot of work, plus being able to at least keep yourself somewhat hidden from any of those stuns or anything else that tries to come through, and a lot of mobility to dodge away from Hung. Like, this means Krem can play relatively safe and try and get towards the point where he's relevant in fights.
I'm excited to see it. We've got some comfort picks across the board here because, as we mentioned, our boy on the Ezreal, Lian, Nidalee is pretty much the pick that you think of with Lian. And now Krem, as you say, Akali, very much one of his most played. This guy loves the assassins. He loves the melee champions. Akali, very much within his wheelhouse. And I'm excited to see that. I said it in game number 1. I don't want to see him on Victor. I want to see him flex his muscles on this stage. This is his first series in the LPL. Let's see what he can do when he has the freedom to strut his stuff. But I'm also curious about that top lane matchup because this set being blind picked again for Cube here. Lee Sin going into it. I don't know the matchup well, Dagda, but I'd imagine Lee Sin has a lot of mobility. Set has to land one big ability. Feels like Lee Sin's probably pretty good at dodging that.
Yeah, you can do relatively well at dodging it, but it's more so like it's kind of a war of attrition to a certain extent because Lee Sin can do a lot of stuff with like controlling the wave, right? Where he's got that E to start pushing it. You've also be able to sustain yourself pretty well off the W. So it's not like Set's able to play kind of his usual style, which is I take these heavy trades, I blast you back in the face with my haymaker, and then I'm able to heal it up through the passive because Lee Sin can do a relatively good job of actually trading that. So I feel like it'll end up kind of stalemated to a certain extent until we get jungle intervention up towards that top side of the map. That's when we'll see it actually start to turn around and have a bigger swing or a bigger factor in that top lane.
Well, we're getting ready for game number 2. You can see the compositions here. We're back to League of Conqueror, mate. We've got 6 Conquerors across the game here. Halo Blades on cold as well. We've got 2 opposite ways of playing the lane, right? Center Tom Kench can be very oppressive, especially with the Halo Blades. And then you've got Ezreal and Bard, who basically just want to handshake the lane. They just want to get out of there, let Bard roam, let Ezreal do his thing solo. So 2 very opposite ways to approach that bottom lane.
I'm kind of surprised to see the Halo Blades on cold, because usually when we see the Halo Blades, it's into like a melee support that you can actually, trade pretty aggressively and look to use the Halo Blades. But against like a Bard, it can be kind of hard, especially with the slows, and also then iBoy just being able to piece out with his arcane shift. So we'll have to see if Code's actually going to get much use out of it. I feel like generally the Guardian would give you a lot more here in this lane.
Well, he's going to go for the Halo Blades regardless. Definitely feeling more aggressive. Maybe he'll find an opportunity. Certainly with the slow that Abel can get down off of his Q and the Glacial Augment, maybe there'll be some opportunities there. But let's talk early game then, Dagda. Let's try and set the pace of what we expect here, because both junglers starting on the bottom side, getting leashes from their teams, and pathing up towards that top lane.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of action up towards this top side of the map. You can see Cube and New trading fairly well against each other, but certainly with Senna on the bottom side, Aki will be looking to play towards this top lane and certainly towards this mid lane as well to try and keep Krem safe. Because for RA, like we've already talked about it, Fofo is the one that they are going to be looking to play around. They're going to be looking to try and get this Viego up and rolling. And if that does happen, he can be a pretty scary boy. So I'm curious to see now how these junglers are going to meet up and where that action is going to kick off from the get-go.
I'll have to say New just about getting that CS and dashing out. It looks like he's pretty nervous about going toe-to-toe with Cube. Certainly in the early game is able looking to get some souls down in the bottom side of the map. And remember, will be the TK farming that one up. You can see we've got a few of the matches that are coming up this week flashing up on the bottom of your screen. JDG versus Top Esports I saw flashing up earlier. That's going to be on Saturday. Very excited for that matchup. It's certainly not the same level of matchup that it was partway through 2020, but still going to be incredibly exciting to see if JDG are back on form. But we'll talk about that matchup when it comes to Saturday. We'll focus on the matchup at hand, at least for now. And I am curious about first off, this matchup in the mid lane. I'd expect it to be Viego favored, at least in the short term, but I'll hold that thought because we've got to dive on the top side. Cube gonna look to try and hold New still for a spear, but whether or not that's going to be possible is a different question. Cube Gonna get underneath the tower. There's the stun. There's the dive coming in, and Lien finishes the kill comfortably.
Yeah, unfortunately, Aki actually pathed back down towards this bottom side, completely abandoning Nu. And I was thinking Aki would stay up towards his top end to try and prevent that dive, making sure that nothing could come astray up there. But it looks like it's just a nice dive coming in from Ore, able to get Cube ahead once again in this matchup versus Nu. And we can see how quickly that went astray. And when you've got this combo with Set, who's very capable of tanking up the tower with the Haymaker shield, and you've got Lien, who's able to deal a heap of damage to this Lee Sin, it's going to be tough for Nu to try and survive this, even with all the mechanics he has are available for himself to try and keep himself out.
Yeah, that'll be the question, is if he can kind of hold the line on that one. But, you know, Cube looked really good in game number 1. His set, very, very clean. And, you know, obviously, the early dives coming on through, he did fall behind in the lane to Nu's Wukong. But at the end of the day, Cube was the one that came out on top of the matchup. And it feels like him set up for success once again. But also Lien having an early kill on his Nidalee on one of his signature picks. That's got to be a great start as Abel. Now in trouble in the bottom side. But Cold can just walk up forward with the Hail of Blades and bully out iBoy instead. I thought they were going to play defensive. Hung now gets the magical journey through the wall. Lien is here, but he's exhausted. And Cold is not afraid here. Abel goes back in as well. Gobbled up, pulled out to safety. They're just going to 2v3 them, Dagda. OMG don't give a monkeys.
Yeah, iBoy was already very low and not actually able to get into a position to try and follow up on that. So essentially it turned into a 2v2 with neither side really coming out the better for wear, but will mean that Abel has to back away. So they will shove in this bottom side to try and give a nice reset towards iBoy. But overall, I like this proactivity from Ore coming in, getting these early plays with Lien, trying to play towards his lanes and get them up and rolling. But honestly, I think either way, I kind of like Ore's composition as we start to scale into the game. Like, iBoy is going to do a relatively good job when we get towards that mid-game portion. Same with Fofo when he gets towards 2 items. But the biggest problem that I see for OMG's side is, like, who are your kind of assassins, I'm going to say, for lack of a better term, really going to focus on, right? Because for Krem, you don't really just one-shot a Viego. You're not really going to get through Cube. It's very difficult to get on towards iBoy as well because of how safe iBoy can play and just the arcane shift and the ability to get away from you. So in a lot of these respects, you're kind of struggling for both Nu and Krem for targets in these fights. And I feel like unless you get on towards Lien, you can still do pretty well as Ore just with the amount of damage and sustain that is coming through on your side.
Oh, Spear just goes slightly wide. Aki is waiting though, Nu. Trying to bait this one out. Does get pulled in. Trades back slightly onto Cube. Cube connects, but Nu not willing to follow that one up. Doesn't know where Lien is for now. As Hung's made a roam towards that mid lane. But Krem going to be fairly safe on the Akali. Able to just shove this wave in and hopefully for him reset the lane. Because you definitely don't want to be frozen out, especially on a champion like Akali.
No, and I think he'll be alright though. I think the bigger thing here is just like, I want to see Aki actually doing something right now because it feels like he's kind of been in the wrong place, the wrong time. Yes, he's able to keep Nu safe in that top side, but this is something where like, Udyr needs to get in towards these lanes, and it's something that Aki has been pretty good at, but if he's just going to end up farming up, he's not actually going to be in a position where you can truly impact the game, and your laners are just going to fall further and further behind because of, you know, the stronger matchup in the top and the mid, and Senna not really doing too much on this bottom side.
Yeah, not so far, but I mean, it is very much a case of OMG will be looking to scale up. Hey, Dagda, I'm seeing a Sheen first item on Abel. I don't know if I've missed a memo. Is Sheen first item on Senna a thing now? Did I miss something?
I haven't. Like, I was literally just thinking, like, why would I see this coming through? Because, like, it builds into, like, Iceborne Gauntlet and, or sorry, not even the Iceborne Gauntlet anymore. Sorry, what am I saying?
Essence
But basically,
yeah.
like, oh, hang on. Yeah,
into a little bit of a skirmish. I think he's fine.
Yeah, into the Essence Reaver and that. But, like, the two builds I've seen have been the Frostfire Gauntlet and also going across into, like, your regular Senna build with the Gwynsus and the Kraken Slayer. So I'm actually not sure what he's going for here. I'm going to have to wait and see as this kind of goes forward. But if you are going Essence Reaver, like, you're not really running low too much on mana as the game starts to go on. Actually, more than likely going towards the Divine Sunder just to try and play through a lot of healing, a lot of max health damage, because you end up with it's not as high on the AD carries, but you can still do relatively well. And you're still going to be getting a lot of healing off in team fights. So I think it's probably going to be the Divine Thunder, and seeing if he can carry through just the amount of raw health that's going to be on Ore. He'll get value from the passive.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. I can see it now. And also you can proc your Sheen through your Q as well. So it will proc immediately at very long range for Setter. So definite value I can see there. I'm excited. I mean, it does feel like Divine Sunderer there's a flowchart for Divine Sunderer on this patch. Can you build it? If so, yes. You just build it.
Yeah.
It's just real strong right now. So seems
and
like
then
Setter
can you
just
build
falls
it?
into the
No,
same
pick
category.
a different champion. You know, it's such an easy flowchart to follow.
It's the new Black Cleaver. I wish she could stack.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I really don't wish she could stack them. I take that back completely.
I think there's a few items on this patch that are insanely strong. I think the Divine Thunder is one. I think Abysso Mask has been slept on a little bit. I think the 15% increased damage for anyone that you CC is absolutely insane, but obviously we're not getting a huge amount of tanks and stuff that will actually build this item, but I still think that when we do get to see it, people are going to realize just how strong that item is.
Yeah, it definitely feels like, I mean, look, we're post MSI, there's been a patch that's essentially been missed in competitive, so inevitably it's going to take you a little while before the proper meta for this patch is figured out globally, and that means there's going to be champions that are maybe broken that people don't realize just yet. There's going to be items that are maybe broken that we already realize with some of them, but I expect more to come through the woodwork as well. And I like it when we get to cast these kind of patches. I like it when we get to explore the patch with the players. Like we have a Viego mid here from Fofo that's built a Hex Drinker first. I haven't seen that before, but I can see the logic of it, but I'm more than happy to explore this build with Fofo, be taken on the journey.
I've been watching like Canyon and stuff, playing Viego in the jungle and that, and like he's been playing a lot of the Divine Thunder. Viego just going back to how strong that item is, but it feels like at least for this, Fofo's kind of gone, right, I need something that's going to give me some really good magic resist right now, but I don't know if the Hex Drinker was the way to go. Oh, bot lane, actually.
Hang on. Abel's in trouble here, but he's able to back away a little bit. Trisha Barrage goes wide. The Ezreal Bard anti-synergy that we all know and love. They're a great combo because they never want to be together. That's the crazy thing about this duo.
Yeah, the semi-global and the global working in completely against each other is wonderful to see. But come back to the point, I think for Fofo, I think just picking up the early Merc threads would have been enough here. But he's obviously very scared of Krem and how much damage he can do. But you can see Krem has already delayed his own power spike. Going towards this early Oblivion Orb means that, yes, he's going to cut the healing from Fofo, but not really going to have the execution damage or assassination damage. So I think it's a bit of back and forth across both sides.
That's it. Cube just annihilated that top tower. Like, Herald was just used onto his tower. Krem's actually maybe in trouble. Hung is here. I don't think he's going to be fine on this one. Yeah, the Herald is used. 4 plates are taken on the top side, but they're shared between Nu and Aki. And then Cube just crashes the wave back. There was no TP available for Nu. And he just takes 3 plates himself because he's playing set and he's got 2 tier 2 items at this point, so he can just do that. It's like, hey, you remember that gold lead that you just got for yourself? Yeah, that's gone now. I've got the gold lead again. Oh, actually has to flash away, though.
Yeah, I think Nu, if he'd actually landed that, managed to flash in and kick, could have got the kill, but mid lane, Krem getting attention.
3-man here, flash out from Krem. Over the wall, keeps himself safe. Nicely played there, good respect. He's basically in a 2v1 lane with occasional 3v1 of Nidalee arriving as well, because Hung has been in mid lane more than he's been on the bottom side of the map this game.
Well, this is what we expected, right? We said, hey, look, you've got Eyeboy there. He's just going to wave clear, get Hung out of the bottom side. And he was hovering the Bard, hovering the Pike, couldn't decide. But the Bard is the perfect thing to work with here because you can just go very aggressive towards his mid lane, look to set up Fofo for success. And you can see the results, right? Highest CS in the game, starting to get some pressure on the map. And when he gets towards this Immortal Shield Bow complete and really does start to come into his own, he's going to be really difficult for OMG to deal with because, as we already talked about, like, Krem isn't going to be able to assassinate him. Nu can deal some damage, but definitely is a backup of Abel there.
Is that Project Tom Kench? I'm so confused. That animation
I think
really
it's the Chinese New Year one. Hey! Man, you look great in that photo.
Mate, you look great in
Back when you had hair.
I know. I'm not gonna lie. I can feel that I'm in a a room with closed doors, I can still feel the breeze. That's how bold my scalp is. But I forgot what we were talking about. Yeah, Tahm Kench looking futuristic on that animation. But let's kind of recap where we're at in the game, because gold is actually very even right now, and it's been a pretty slow early game, which is similar to what we saw in game number 1. And then we got to the mid game, and RA just blew everything open, just took over and won the game from there. Are we going to see a similar thing? Because it feels like with a Lee Sin and with an Akali, it shouldn't just be down to pure scaling this time. It does feel like OMG have changed the strategy and maybe can fare better in this mid game.
Yeah, it really, to me, feels like for OMG, their team fights are about trying to get onto, like, the squishy backliners, right? For Leanne and iBoy. If you can have either Nu or Krem do that, they can cause a lot of issues where iBoy has to try and push back. Leanne could actually just get assassinated outright by either the Lee Sin or the Akali. However, if you don't end up in that situation and we end up in like these front-to-back fights, or in the same situation for ORA last game where they were controlling these objectives and getting towards the river area first, it becomes much more easy for ORA to try and take a bit more of a front-to-back style of fight, look for a Fofo on a flank position, and from that point forward you can just cause a lot of problems for OMG where they don't have access to these backline. It becomes really hard for Krem to have much of an impact, and then you can take the fights that way.
Big spear onto Abel there. That's half of his health gone immediately. And we'll be able to survive. It's fine. I feel like the whole story of this game so far has been like, somebody lands a big ability. Somebody makes a little thing happen, but it's not quite enough to follow up on. Part of that is just there's a Tahm Kench in the game. That's always going to be the way to an extent, but also Akali with the Twilight Shroud able to dodge. A lot of potential opportunities, but Drake's coming up in 12 seconds time. The Soul is going to be either Mountain or Infernal, and this Drake is going to be an Ocean. This feels like an opportunity to fight as RA stepping up. Aki is here, trying to push into the jungle. iBoy actually will be rooted here, has to jump over the wall, get himself to safety. You can see Krem is on the top side of the map, but has the TP available, as does Fofo. Aki going to pull the Drake out of the pit. This feels tense, Dagda. This feels real tense because OMG trying to fight for mid prio. They can start to move over. They got Nu here as well. Krem's still up on the top side, but again, TP available. Both teams just toying with the idea, Dagda, but neither willing to commit.
Yeah, I don't think OMG wants to. I think that's why it feels so tense. Aki would really like to get his hands on this dragon, but I think it's a bad idea. Like, they're not really in a position to try and fight this. Although, as I say, that Krem now coming down could have a decent flank position on towards the likes of iBoy.
Grouping up with the rest of his team. News here as well. There's a route onto Cube. Not the best target, though, to try and focus onto. And Abel, this time he has a Tahm Kench, so he can position real aggressively and get away with it. Dragon down to 2k. Krem going all the way around to get behind his team. Tempered Fate onto Cold. Aki could be in trouble now. It's going to be the engage coming on through. Showstopper into the backline. Lien onto the Drake here. We'll be able to finish that one off with the Dawning Shadow. Shields across the team. Hung getting low. There's two members just getting taken apart on the backline here as OMG look to win the fight. Fofo escaping, as is Lien. I think he was toying with the idea of going in there. That would be suicide, my friend.
It was a good fight for OMG, though. ORA had kind of stayed around for so long that Krem could get into a nice flank position. Same with Nu, and iBoy goes down, meaning that there's no real damage from the AD carry for ORA, and Abel is able to stay up the whole time, just wailing away on the members of ORA.
I'm a little surprised OMG didn't get more off the back of that play. It felt like with only Lien and Fofo up, maybe they could have tried to pressure the mid-tier 1. Maybe they could have gone for the Herald. But I think potentially just wanting to reset so they can contest the Herald if RA goes for that right on respawn. But importantly, RA did get the Drake here, Dax.
Yeah, but watch Nu. Nu was the big catalyst for this whole fight. He gets access onto iBoy. He's forced to flash, arcane shift. He's trying everything to get away from this play, but Krem and Nu are able to take him down. And meanwhile, while this whole thing is going on, Cube and Hung are trying to deal with that backline of OMG, but they don't end up catching Abel in the Tempered Fate, so he's fine, he's able to step away, and Fofo's being called to try and deal with iBoy's troubles in the backline. So a very split fight and very messy from ORA. Now, though, OMG have going to spend that gold. They're going to be ready for this Rift Herald that's just up, and with only 2 minutes left, you can see both teams are trying to see if they can catch that before the 20-minute mark.
Oh, there's a route onto Hung. It's just going to be a soul taken by Abel. You can see how much damage the Divine Sunder proc is starting to do as well. Abel definitely going to be looking good the longer this goes on. OMG with the advantage in this one. As you say, the solo lane is doing work in that fight. And I have to say, Dagda, if you'd asked me a month ago who the strongest parts of OMG were going to be this split, the solo laners would not have been my answer. But beautiful fight coming out from Krem there. Really nice setup from Nu as well. So I'm excited to see a little bit more of this Akali from Krem. Remember, this is his debut series in the LPL. With plays like this, I'm excited to see more. But now he's in trouble. Twilight Shroud underneath the tower here. He's 1v3. Oh no, it's a disaster of a TP from Nu. But luckily Code is here. Krem's got back in. Almost one-shots Lien. That was clean.
That was, I was liking the enthusiasm coming out from Nerdy. He ends up getting the kill, but not quite. And that's what, although the tower goes down that top side of the map and OMG are all carried up, we got a little bit of trading back and forth in the mid lane as well here. But still, these are where ORA are getting these little bits of gold back and forth now. Top lane turret going down for them. Now they can start to put pressure elsewhere in the map and honestly try and spread out into a bit of a 1-3-1. Like, Cube is in a really good spot with the Strike Breaker. Fofo having actually just finished the Gale Force, which I was really surprised at. Will be in a good spot in the side lane, but Gale Force is not something that I've typically seen on this Viego. Like, we talk about the Divine Sunder, Immortal Shield Bow. Hell, even the Kraken Slayer is super popular. But the Gale Force here, very much realizing, hey, look, I'm going to struggle to get into these fights and want to try and use this for extra execution damage, trying to make sure that I've got that mobility. Honestly, I think if you're going to go this... Ooh, hang on.
Oh, no. Oh, Cold. He's in trouble here. Flashes out to safety. Will have his shield available as well. Actually tanking a lot of damage here. Will finally go down. The Herald gets another charge as they're grouping up in the jungle here. Maybe this could be turned around. Nu is in the middle of everyone. Krem just arriving. Everyone's so low as well. This could be the perfect fight for him on the Akali, but can't connect the perfect execution and has to flash out to safety himself. Now RA on the turnaround once more. They got 2 towers in this play already. What else can they get?
I think that was a bit of a whoopsie from Abel in that play. Actually took the Bard portal out, but stuck himself over the wall. So as soon as RA saw that Abel was out of the fight, they go for the re-engage. So it means that you're still getting that gold going down in that mid lane as well, alongside the tower. So overall, RA again kind of just putting their dominance down on the map. And it feels like for OMG, they're just not fast enough on the play, and they're just not playing the map out as well as RA right now.
It's going to be Fofo moving up towards the top side here to try and get some semblance of control. RA do manage, and this is all while Herald is going. That's the most important thing. There were 2 towers taken in the midst of this fight.
And this is the thing, right? You've got the Lee Sin top, you've got Akali on the bot side. OMG are not prepared for this. Even though you got the TP onto Krem, Nu gets this great kick, which is what puts the entirety of OMG so low. But watch Abel here. Takes the Bard portal, and now he's out of the fight. So RA realize, hang on a second, we're actually in a favorable advantage here, trying to take the fight. Now, though, dragging up in 5 seconds, team posturing once again. And when you don't have flashes onto Abel or Cold, this is where there's so much more vulnerable.
Nu looking for another kick here. Krem over the wall, trying to clear the vision. As you say, Dragon up. Tempered Fate onto 2. Teleport being channeled as well. Krem on the backline. Keep your eyes on this Akali here. Cube going to be locked up as Krem does get his Shuriken on in. Fofo chasing Akali out of the fight, though. And OMG have to regroup. They have to rethink this play. Backing off into the jungle. The Dragon just taking a couple of pot shots as well. Lien is here. Cube has just reset, but he has his teleport available. And you expect him to come back into this fight, but the Dragon resets once more. And these are some of the longest team fights I've ever seen, Dagda, but they're still going. OMG moving back into the pit here. Cube. As they look to try and get damage onto the jungler. Fofo getting kicked out as well. Nu is behind everyone. Cube with a huge showstopper. It's onto Colt, though. He's tanky and a lot of shields coming up through. Finally goes down, but what is the cost? Aki having to back away. Cream can't get into the fight. Neither can Nu. The solo laners don't get to play, and Abel goes down. This will be the Drake for RA, and Soul Point to boot.
And it's heartbreak for OMG. They're trying so hard to play these fights, but not being able to get those flanks, not being able to find an opportunity to get onto the back line, and RA just slowly but surely whittling them down with the mystic shots from my boy, with those spears coming through from Lien. And when it gets to the end of the day, Cube, great flank to just start off the fight and force OMG to take these unfavorable trades.
Baron now just getting burnt on down. Nu, you know, he wants He likes the idea of contesting this on. I'm not sure it's happening, though. Aki is going to try and just run into the pit, see if he can go for the 50-50. The kick across the team, but the steal isn't there. Nu gets back out the other side. Aki just sprints off towards the top lane. I don't know how they both escape with that attempt, but it doesn't matter regardless. RA get the Baron.
And that is a massive swing for RA. They were slightly down coming into the last few passages of plays, but now sitting with a nearly 3,000 gold lead for themselves. Baron in their favor as well. And now they can start to really put the pressure on towards OMG, because although it's great to have all these kind of assassins like the Lee Sin and also the Akali, they're not great at trying to clear these waves, and same when you look towards Abel as well. So this is where RA now can start to siege up on these turrets, use the Nidalee and those Mystic shots to poke away at a vulnerable OMG.
Yeah, so now RA regaining control of the bottom side of the map. Drake not going to be up for another 3.5 minutes, but it's going to be a crucial moment in the series. It's a 3,000 gold advantage, but RA are already 1-0 up. And remember, RA made no roster changes coming into this split. They had a great middle of the split. Their peak was tied for second place, technically third on tiebreakers. But then it all sort of fell off towards the end of the year. It feels like this is their split to prove that it wasn't just a fluke, to prove that it was more than just a flash in the pan. And so far, so good against OMG here. The new roster just struggling to make it happen in this matchup now. Using the Baron, as you can see, Fofo just pushing the mid lane. All 5 members of OMG are stood here underneath the tower. Fofo's going to take an in-hit by himself at this rate.
And this tier 2 is like the one you don't defend. It's one of the easiest ones to take because you've got all these flanks. So losing this mid inhib is not worth keeping this tier 2.
This is just not it. I don't know what it is, but this ain't it. This is going to be the tier 2. Still is going to go down because Lian and Fofo can threaten the dive on the flank here. Cube can just push the wave. They've got the Baron minions anyway. You expect RA to be able to just brute force this tier 2 at this stage. And there's a Bard portal as well. They're threatening the dive. Are they actually going to go for it, though? Because, I don't know, against the Akali and stuff, maybe diving isn't the play. Abel just desperately trying to get some poke down. Aki goes in. The fight is going to be the answer here. iBoy jumps out exhausted. Cold pulls Abel out of the play. Krem into the middle of everyone. Dawning Shadow across the squad. Lian low on HP. News on the flank as well. Sonic Wave dodge from iBoy gets into the middle of everything. That's Nidalee going down. That's 1 kill as Abel still free firing in the backline. Cube trying to do what he can, but RA, they're winning out the fight. They've got the gold advantage that they need, and they're taking down some kills. Everybody has to fleet from OMG. It looked beautiful for a second, but it just wasn't enough.
Now RA have full control of this bottom side. OMG, they tried to make the play a weird turret and Mike can punish, but actually, Fofo?
Yeah, there's still 4 of them here, but Nu is on a flank. Abel is going to go down, though, a little bit too early. And Nu now looking at his flank position like, yeah, I can't do anything on that one, Chieftain. It's going to be the towers going down. This is looking like it might just be game here. Dagda Aki up in 5 seconds time. Nu goes in, desperate to make anything happen, but Cube just flashes on and blasts him in the face with a haymaker. Here we go, the respawns are coming in. Double stun comes out from Hung. That is beautiful. And Crave suddenly finds himself alone in the world. Chased down and finished off by Cube once again, whose set is looking clean. The Nexus is bare as RA will close the gap and finish things off. These fights have been absolutely mental, and that is where RA win it out.
These are the longest fights in the history of League of Legends, I swear. Every time they were just kept going and going, but eventually RA managed to take the bot tower, they take the 2 Nexus turrets and the Nexus itself, and pick themselves up their first win of LPL Summer.
Yeah, beautiful stuff coming out from RA. You're absolutely right. Those fights were like, every single team fight felt like it went on for 2 or 3 minutes with the sustain coming out from both sides, but also neither team really quite committing to each of these plays. We saw so many plays across the game that were like, everyone just at arm's reach, throwing some Nidalee spears, throwing a bit of poke from the center, just waiting for the perfect opportunity. But the secret is, the perfect opportunity will never actually be there. You just got to pull the trigger sometimes.
Yeah, I think for RA, I actually kind of liked that they played that slow, right? But we already talked about, you know, Senna, she did receive some nerfs to her range, which means that she's not going to be able to answer for the poke that's coming through from Nidalee and Ezreal. So these like slower fights worked out super well in favor of RA, and why they were able to pick up so many of them. However, when we looked across at OMG, the fact that they weren't really getting people into the right flank positions hurt them quite a bit. Like, the one fight they won, New was in a perfect spot to get that kick at the first dragon to kill iBoy. And Krem was able to follow up super well. The next few fights, Ore did a really good job of keeping the vision control there, so then Krem couldn't find these flanks. New as well wasn't able to get into a good position. And it was actually the top laner for Ore, Cube, who was able to get these more prominent flank positions.
Yeah.
And I felt like once that happened, the whole game plan from OMG fell apart. And you even add into the fact Ore just honestly playing the map state better, this was Ore favored the whole long.
And you know, when Cube is playing set in these team fights as well as he is, I can kind of understand the blind first pick. I can understand why you want that on your team when Cube can do things like that. Beautiful stuff coming out from RA. And, you know, partway through that game, I was thinking we might even go to 3. I was thinking it was looking pretty good for OMG. Things seem to be ticking. And, man, Kremzakali, there were so many moments in that game that it was, like, so close to beautiful. So close to him popping off and winning the whole game. But just things didn't quite line up and it all fell apart. So, you know, definitely some good things happening for OMG here. Doesn't feel, I don't know how to word this. I don't. It doesn't feel as hopeless as last split. I'll just say it as it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely RA the better team on the day.
Yeah, and I think the big thing, coming back to your Krem point, like, I really liked Zakali. I think he looked pretty good. The biggest problem, again, was just what we highlighted. The composition never really lent itself. Ora's composition never really lent itself to, like, easy access for this Akali, right? Because if you're just landing everything into the Viego, I mean, Viego's fine. He'll lifesteal through it. He's going to be super tanky as well. So that's fine. Same with the set in the top lane. Unless you get onto Leanne or iBoy, you're not really going to be able to do too much. And that's a pretty tall task with where Ore were positioned and how they were making sure to stop any sort of these entries for Krem and New. So I think overall, positive. Definitely more so for OMG, kind of looking at where they were standing in spring 2021, but for Ore, a pretty dominant win here.
Yeah, and that's 2 games in a row here for RA where they're just kind of like biding their time for 20 minutes. And it's like, okay, we got a couple of items. Time to put our foot down. Time to play around Baron. Time to take control of the map. And I think Baron is the key thing, right? When we look at this series, RA played around Baron really, really well. Not even just necessarily fighting around Baron, but more how they were able to use that buff for themselves and the fact that they got many, many Barons across this series. So able to use that to find their wins and close things out. So really, really nicely done by RA. I'm excited to see what they have ahead for us in the split, but I don't want to celebrate too early. For RA fans out there, don't get too excited just yet, because it's similar to what we talked about. Well, what I wasn't on the broadcast yesterday. I don't know why I'm saying what we talked about. But like yesterday, FBX, they absolutely smashed Rogue Warriors. Yes, that's very exciting, but it is Rogue Warriors. So you still have to wait a little bit to see how good FBX really are, and I feel the same for RA here. Yes, they've beaten OMG, but we need to see a little bit more before we get too excited. The MVP for this one, Dag, there, it's going to go the way of Fofo.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, season 11 champions, Joe, you've been talking about it a little bit today. How strong they are. And the Viego coming in looking wonderful. But despite that fact, I think Fofo played it exceptionally well. I think his laning was splendid. I think the fact that he was able to, as you see, get multiple resets off here, he was consistently finding just the right moment to be able to go aggressive here and cutting off, as you can see, Abel in this clip here, like the fully utilizing the capabilities of Viego's kit. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this coming through from Fofo specifically, because as we said, he loves these AD mid laners. He loves the opportunity to have these big champions that can make plays, and right now that is definitely Viego for this guy. So I think as we go forward, Viego is going to be something that becomes pretty synonymous with Fofo.
I hope so, because it was an absolute pleasure to watch, and I think Viego just in general is going to become a huge, huge priority pick, especially in the LPL, but Gwen as well. Disappointed we didn't get to see any Gwen in this series, but maybe in the second series. But we have an interview ready on the stage, so I'm going to kick it over to the stage where we have iBoy waiting for an interview.
Hi everyone, welcome to the interview, and now I'm standing by with iBoy after taking his first win over OMG. So my very first question is, for this split, Real Atom didn't have any changes in the starting rosters. So during the off-season practice, in what aspects the whole team put more attention on? 那首先第一个问题也是很恭喜你们今天2-0战胜了对手嘛。那其实对于 RA 来讲，首发成员并没有任何的变动，所以想问一下，你们在休赛期的一些训练中，可能着重呢去把重心放在哪些方面呢？
我们队是没有改变的。休赛期那当然是字面意思啊，我们一直在休息，其实没怎么训练的，因为我们就决定不变了嘛。然后因为开赛之前训练一段时间，我们也磨合的挺快的，毕竟没换人员。
I think in the off seasons, because we didn't have any changes in the starting roster, so literally it's the off season for us. So we just take some rest during the off season, and because we didn't have any changes, as I have mentioned before, so we were able to have a very good synergy in the starting of the split. And it's a very interesting answer. And my next question is, in today's both games, I think you guys have a rather stable or meticulous early game, and intentionally, we feels like Rare Atom speeded up the whole tempo from the very mid game. So could we know more about your play style in the split? 那其实对于今天的2场比赛，我们感觉好像你们的前期可能打得更加的比较小心一点，然后在中期突然的一个提速，然后就一波一波抱团，然后滚起雪球。所以想问一下，你怎么去看待这个队伍，你们队伍在这个赛季的一个打法呢？
这主要是我们玩的英雄都是偏后期的，就是找机会能力没有那么的强，所以就慢慢运营打到后期才是我们最擅长的。
In terms of our playstyle, it's because it's based on our compositions, because we have a very scaling comps, so we try to scale up, and because based on our composition, it's not very good for us to seeking for the early game opportunities, so we just scale up and try to find more opportunities in the late game. And my next question is, I feel that Real Atom, you guys are 5 members played like a whole in the team fights, so I'm very curious about who's the main shot caller inside the team. 那其实我们也感觉在团战的时候，你们5个人真的有种5人一体的感觉，所以想问一下，现在这个赛季谁可能一般是在团战之中去做一个主导的，或者说一个指挥的位置呢？
除了开团英雄指挥之外，我们都是自己看机会嘛，因为一直去指挥的话，其实也影响队友的发挥嘛，就开团的英雄看一下就行。
Normally, the one with the engaging champions, he will take the man shot. He will be the man shot caller for the whole team. And also, because if all of us want to make the shot call, this will be quite messy in the mid game. So so the players with the engaging champions, he will just take the initiative to make the shot calls for all the other teammates. And my last question is, we really feels like in the current meta, in the early game, we try to play more around the upper half of the map. So at the AD carry of the team, how would you evaluate the function of the marksman or the bot duo in the current meta? 那我们其实感觉现在这个版本好像在前期更多的去围绕着地图的上半区来做事情，所以说，那作为一个 AD 和一个下路的选手，你怎么看待这个版本可能 AD 和下路的一个生态呢？或者是作用是怎么样
的？英雄来讲的话，这版本又出了2个新的英雄，然后打上半区肯定是对的吧，因为 AD 版本还是偏后期好一点，前期游戏节奏让上半区去做就行了。当然 AD 也很重要，那就是中后期。
Because in the current patch, we have 2 new champions for the upper half. And also, I think definitely played around the upper half in the early game is the right choices in the current meta. But I still think AD carry or the marksman is still very important because we can just carry the whole game in the mid to late game. That's my thoughts. And thank you for the sharing and congratulations again. 再次恭喜你们这个赛季，加油 ！And back to you guys. Bye bye.
Thank you very much, iBoy. And of course, thank you very much, Wendy, for doing the interview and the translation. So, iBoy, feeling good on that one. I like what he said about shot calling, how it's like, we don't necessarily have a strict shot call. It's just whoever's the one that's going to go in, they're going to go, hey, I'm going in. And everyone else just follows up on that. It's like, just keep it simple. I like it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm now gonna have to like rewatch their games to figure out like when was their best shot calling and who was on the engaged champion to figure out who's actually the person I want to see on engaged champions. But yeah, I think overall like RA going to be fairly positive after that. I mean, as they were kind of talking about, like, it felt like their mid game was where they really came online with their compositions, and once they did, they knew exactly how they wanted to play them out. So I think overall they're going to be pretty happy. And again, we're seeing like standout performances from Leanne. We're seeing the MVP for Fofo. It feels like again we're seeing that multiple people on this team can be a threat, and that's going to be pretty good for Rare Atom fans.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. If you're a Rare Atom fan out there, it's good start. There's still a lot to do. As they discovered last split, there are a lot of games, and 9 isn't enough. But it's still a good start for Rare Atom. We're going to jump into a break, but don't go anywhere, because following the break, we'll jump into EDG versus BLG, with BLG having a new reinvigorated roster. We'll see how they're going to match up against the third place team right after this.